So this video I'm going to try to talk about many of the questions that you may come across. So this will be like a summary of all the videos I've done, and I'm also going to add some extra elements in this. Now you'll find that this video is good for Office 2007 and also Office 2010. I am using Office 2010, and I'll try to point out whenever I come across a difference. Wherever I think that Office 2007 will have a different button, I'll tell you about it. So this is going to be 30-40 minutes of strictly question and answers. So if you want to learn, you might want to go and watch the other videos before you come to this video, as it may get a little heavy for you to understand. So let's get going. The first thing, there are a lot of different questions about opening files and saving files and printing files. So in 2010 they have the file button, whereas in 2007 there is a round button there in the left hand corner right in this section, which is called the Office button. People complained about it in 2007, so they brought the file button back. So this is where you'll be clicking save, and then you save a file. So that's a very common question that they'll ask you. If they ask you like while you are saving it to put a password, then you click on Tools, General Options, and then you put a password for whatever they wanted you to put a password for. So you'll find there are different questions they'll ask. They'll also ask you questions about Save As. Now in 2007, when you point to Save As, it gives you a window from which you can choose that I want to save it as Office 2003 format, so that everybody can open it, because the 2007 format cannot be opened by the 2003 Word by default. So, but in 2010 I'll click on Save As, and then from this drop down button I choose 97 2003 document. If they ask you to save it as a PDF, you can choose PDF. You can do the same thing in 2007 also. Like you can just click on the Office button, click Save As, and then you get the same window, and you can choose the same options in the Save As type. And the same thing your Tools, I can again go to General Options to put a password. You'll also get questions about opening files, which is just click here, click on Open. And in the exam you will usually find that when you click Open, the file will be sitting there for you to click on, so you don't have to go looking for it. There'll be questions about printing, so you can click on the word print. Now in 2007 you'll get a window where you get to answer the question about printing. Now usually they will not ask too many questions about printing. They'll just say click on print and then print. That's all they care about. But you'll see when you look at the window you have some other options that you can look at. And also there is the minus sign here, which if I had more than one pages, I could hit the minus sign to make more pages fit in here. In 2007 you will see a same option here when you go into print preview. And in 2007 on the top in this section here you'll see X, which means to close out of print preview. In 2010 I just click on the home button and I'll be back out of there, out of print preview. Okay. And the other options is to, if they ask you a question about adding these buttons here, which is called Quick Access Toolbar, I can click here and I can choose the buttons I want. So I can put the print preview, which I've added here, a shortcut, spelling and grammar I've added here, and some of the buttons are already there from earlier. You may also get an option to start a new file. So you click on File and then you click New, and then you double click on Blank Workbook. So that will open a new file. So these are the questions from this section. I'll come back for one of the options which is listed there. So now just let's go over some other things. So if I highlight, they'll say change the font type, make the font different. You can also use this button, increase and reduce. They will also ask you to make it bold or italic or underline. They might ask you a question about make a font color, so you can do that. They'll ask you questions about change the case from right now it is capitalize each word, which is each alphabet in the word is capitalized. You can make it uppercase. The whole thing is capital. You can make it lowercase, or I can go back to capitalize each word. You'll also get a question where they'll ask you to make it small caps. To make it small caps in the font, there is this button which stands for more, and you'll find that every section has that. So I can click it, and there is the small caps. What small caps does is everything is in capital, but the A and the P are bigger in size than the other characters. So that's called small caps. So you'll see your questions about that because they want to see whether you know the difference. You'll get questions about these two, which is like, when you need to put like H2O, so the 2 is on the bottom. So all I have to do is type H2O and then highlight 2 and then hit this button, Subscript. So 2 is on the bottom. If I had used this one, it puts H square O. Okay, I can highlight, hit the same button, and it comes back to normal. Okay, let's just talk about, you'll see options about cutting and pasting. So I can copying and pasting. And this is called the Format Painter. Format Painter means that, say I highlight this word and I make it bold and a certain size and a certain color. Now I want to apply this to some places quickly. I can double click on Format Painter. Now when I click on a word, it changes. I highlight, it changes. So you got to be careful with this because you will start to change things. And then you press this to turn it off. If you press it only one time, you can only use it one time. You press it 2 times, it stays on till the time you turn it off. You can also use the undo button. And there is the redo button. So you might come across a question where to say redo the last step. Then you just need to hit the redo button. Alright, so this section's done. Let's come to the paragraph. I can highlight things and I can put it in the center. I can put it to the right. If they ask you about justify, you can use that, but that is only good for paragraphs. Now if I want, I'll just bring this back to the left side. Now to justify, I've just typed a paragraph quickly here, and you see justify means, you see this is ending here and this is ending here. When I highlight this and I hit justify, you see all the things are lined up nicely at the end. So all your magazines or books are always like that, and I can put it back to left. Okay. There's also the option here which allows you to do line spacing, so I can click here and I can make it 1.15 or make it 1.15 or make it 1.0. You can also do the same thing from going to this paragraph more button, and then you can choose the line spacing from here. Alright, so the next thing is called shading, which is whenever they ask you questions about putting colors all the way, they're talking about shading, and they'll usually tell you what color to use. So I can apply a shade on it, and I can remove the shade. You might get questions about borders. So say I want to put a line after my name, so I can click here and choose bottom border, puts the border across it. I can even put the whole thing in a outside border, and I can make it no border. If you wanted to make more changes to the borders, you can click here, go to borders and shading, and now you can choose different styles of lines. And you see up here it automatically puts the box, so I can just click here to remove them, and then you can choose the line colors, line thickness. Make sure you click here because sometimes the changes don't show up. Click OK. Now it's added. And I can go back and make it no from right here. Alright, this up here I can highlight, I can put bullets. Usually the question will be like put the default bullet, so you just need to click there. Or if they say numbering, you just click there. And you press the same thing to remove it. I'll come to this multi-level in a minute, but if they ask you questions about indenting 0.5 inches, you can use this button here. It indents it by 0.5 inches at a time, and you can decrease the indent. Okay. Now, there is another type of indent which I want to do here in the paragraph. When I use the indent here, the whole paragraph is indented. I can move it back. But if I use the tab key on the keyboard, only that first line is indented. You can hit backspace to bring it back. And I'm just going to do some indentations here. I'm doing this indentations like as if this is the main point, this is a point below that point, and this is a point below the sub point. And because I want to do what this is called multi-level list. So if I highlight and they ask you to put a multi-level list thing, you click here and then you choose one of these options. So you see if I choose it, how it puts 1IA, and you can choose different types from the multi-level list. I keep going to the wrong one. Now you may come across a question where it says that define a new list. So you go to the define new list, you give it the name that you want to use, and then you can click OK. Now sometimes they may ask you a question, they say that the first level formatting or whatever should be, they might say ABC or small ABC, or if they say Romans, then you can choose the Roman numerals. So you see it will be in that way. So you might be able to make the changes up here. Click OK, and then that changing is applied at the first level, which is the I, 2, 3. Okay. Now if I want, I can just start hitting undos, or let's see if no spacing works. So no spacing means go back to the way it was. Easier way to do it. This button here, which is A to Z, which stands for sorting, which means put this section here in the alphabetical order. So if I press it, and it's asked me how do you want to put it, ascending, which is A to Z, or descending, Z to A, I click OK. Now we see A, F, M, S, S, T, T, W. So it's in alphabetical order. So you may come across a question about that. This button is called Show and Hide button. When you press it, you start seeing symbols. Wherever you hit enter, you see that. Wherever you hit a space, you see a dot. Now show and hide is very useful whenever you do breaks. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, so I'll talk about it, because when you put page breaks are not visible unless and until you turn on show and hide. Otherwise you will not see the page breaks. Okay. So remember some of these questions. Now the good thing to do is to understand the concepts and see where the things are, because the questions could change. But once you know and understand what questions go into paragraph, at least you can come here, look into the more section, and you can try to find the answers. Tabs, so you start to get a sense of it to where things are. Alright, so some questions about styles. You can highlight something, make it heading 1, makes it a certain style, and I can make it title, makes it a certain style. So you can apply different styles to it, which no spacing is a style within it. You can also create your new style by clicking here, clicking on this button here for new style, give it a name. I can call it my name, and I can make any changes to the format. Up here I can even go to this format, font, and apply even more changes. So this will be my style, and the benefit to this style is that Anytime I change my mind, I just have to change this style. So wherever I applied this style, they all will automatically change. And if you want to modify any styles, you just right click on it and you choose modify. Now I can make changes to this style, and I can say no spacing should always be size 12 or some other font. And you can apply it to only this document, or you can apply it to all documents. You can also choose update automatically so that it will update any changes you make to your documents. So that's about style. You most probably are familiar with find. You can find something. I can click here. In 2007, a small window pops up. In 2010, it looks like this. So I type the word Toronto, and I don't know, what did I click on? Let me go back. I'm thinking I'm going to click on the word find. And I think it did the right thing. It doesn't have any word Toronto because I made some spelling mistakes there. But if I put TOO, Toronto, now it finds it. Okay. Now the same way, there is an option to replace. So I can find a word and I can replace it with something. Now the other questions that you will be asked a lot is where they'll say that find a certain format and change it to something else. So to do this, I'm going to do something. So I'll come here and highlight this. I'm going to hold the control key on the keyboard and highlight this one. So by holding the control key and highlighting, I'm able to highlight lines which are away from each other. And I'm going to make this, say, Times New Roman. Okay. Now the question can be like, it could even be bold. They'll say something will be bold and they'll say find the bold and replace it with no bold. Or in this case, the question is find Times New Roman and replace it with regular, like say Calibre. So I click on replace. I don't want to find a word, so you need to make sure there is nothing there. I'm going to click on more. Click on format on the bottom here. Font. And I'm going to look for the fonts. I click here, type T, and scroll down, Times New Roman, because I want to find that. And if it was bold also, I could add the bold options and the sizes. And I click OK. So you see it says find what? Font Times New Roman. And then replace with, I click here, format, font, and click here, type C, and I'll say change it to Calibre. And just to make a difference, I'll say Calibre and make it red in color. And I'll click OK. And I'll click replace all. Otherwise, I have to go one at a time. It says 4 replacements done. I click OK. Let's see. There it is. Changes have been made. And you'll find that this is a very common questions in the exams. So this covers up the Home tab. So the Home tab is done. Let's go to the Insert tab. Now the Insert tab, you can add a cover page. And usually they'll tell you that add the cover page called Alphabet or Conservative or Austere. And you can scroll down and you'll see there are some other ones. So make sure you pick the right one. You need to read the question properly. I feel sometimes that they're also testing you on your language skills. It's the way they put the wordings is sometimes it's just a bad wording, so they're trying to trick you. And once you add a page, you could always remove it. And remember, all of these pages outside of the question and answer, they are customizable. You can change the images. So if I choose this one, there is a thing, I can type the information that I want. I can click here and change the image from either format or just delete it and put a new one in its place. So you can do that. Besides inserting page, cover page, you can insert a blank page, which is just a blank regular page. Now if my cursor is on the top of the page, if I put a blank page, it will put a blank page above it. If my cursor was at the end and I put a blank page, it will put afterwards. There is an option to insert a page break. Page break means it is separating the sections. That is, the page 2, this is page 2, and if the page 3 is added, page 3 will be a separate section than page 2. So I'll do that. I'll click insert, and now this is one section, page 2, and page 3 is a different section. And to see the break, I'm going to go to home, click on the show hide, and let's see. You see there is a break. What the break does, it gives me control over making this page 3 say landscape, and page 1 and 2 to be portrait, because page 1 and 2 will be joined together because I don't have a break. Or maybe there is a break because the cover page will be a separate section. But that's the idea of the creating page breaks, because it gives you control over certain pages there where you can do more. I'll show you when I come to the page layout tab. Okay. So show and hide, I can press it to go remove it. So that's the inserting page breaks. And just here I can insert a table, and they'll say 3 rows, whatever columns. Now if they tell you like 3 rows and 15 columns, or now you cannot go to 3 columns and 15 rows, there is no 15 rows here, but you can click on this insert table. Now in this you can answer the questions. I want 2 columns, or I want 5 columns, and I want 10 rows, and I can click OK. And then here I can put whatever I want. Okay. And I can highlight this first, and I can put a color on it using the shading, or I can give it a design style. Now what you will find is that sometimes you may be on the home tab and they'll say change the design to a certain table style. Now you have to get used to this table tools, not just in Word but in all Microsoft Office. Whenever you add a element like pictures, charts, tables, you will get tools for it. So if I click outside, there is no tools. When I click on it, the tools show up. So whenever those questions come regarding these elements, you need to go to that, because you'll find those buttons are there. Now in the design, I can click here, and they will say put light shading accent 1. So you see when I point to it, it tells me the name. So they'll tell you the name. So you point to it, say I want this one. So now that is added. Or somewhere down here, something like that. And I can still highlight this row, and they might say put a color on it. I can use shading and put a color on it. And you'll find that the top row is already highlighted. And there are other things you can do, like under layout, you can choose to insert a row about this row. Below, you can insert columns to the left, to the right. So you can do these things. And I'm just going to go ahead and highlight, and you can make changes to their height and width. So I just made the height more. So I'm just clicking here, and then I can choose a height. And I'm just going to type something here. Okay. Now you may get some questions about that. Make it fit in this information. Now if you didn't come to this layout and you saw this AutoFit to contents, you always think of right click. Luckily right click works. So when you right click, you can go to AutoFit and you can AutoFit contents. If they ask you a question about cell alignment, and they'll say put the thing on the bottom. So you see there is the bottom. So you just need to be familiar and see what do these symbols mean. Align center, top, align bottom center, align bottom right. So they all have different meaning. You click it, now the line shows up there, and you'll find that those buttons are also here in the table tools layouts. So that's the table tools, and just understand the layout. You can insert stuff. I can click delete. I can delete cells, columns, rows, or I can delete the whole table. And I'll talk about one more option here. If I just highlight everything, I can convert it to text. From tables, I can move it to text. And just to point out, because this is a table, you can do sorting. Because it's already a table, like in Excel, you can sort things by different columns. You can do that here. So if I highlight, convert to text, and I've got tabs, which is the lines are tabs in a way, and I can click OK, and now you see the table's not there. So you can always do that, and you can always insert tables, not on this wordings, but you can add it separately. So inserting table. Now you can get a questions about inserting pictures or clip art. So if I click here, I can insert a picture, and I'll just go to some samples, and I can pick one of these pictures. I can go to the corner, I can resize, go to this corner, resize. And if you wanted to have the picture in a particular location, you can use the position option. Sometimes they'll tell you that. They'll say use it inline, so you got to choose that, the position. And this is again in the picture tools. They'll say in the position in the top center, when you point to it, it will even spell out. Or you can choose wrap text, and you can choose through, and through will give you more power. You can move it wherever you want it, and the words will work around it. You can also choose behind text, so the picture goes in the background. And you might get questions about picture styles. So they'll say, put one of the styles where you'll be able to put soft edges rectangle. So see, when you point to it, it spells out. So they'll give you those questions. So you need to know where this picture style is, and then look for the button that they want you to add. They might even ask you to add a full reflection or something like that. So you can go to picture effects, reflection, and then you can add the reflection they want, half reflection. And this could be in different things, pictures, or it could be word art, which I'll talk about. So you just need to know where these things are. Okay. And I can hit delete to delete the picture. If you get questions about moving it at an angle, so you'll see this option, the rotate. You see that symbol? So you may want to remember some symbols, because these buttons may not tell you what they are in the test. I click it, and I can rotate it by a certain degree. And I can even go to more rotation options, and I can choose a certain rotation here. Type a number, they'll usually give you the number. So I'll say maybe 180 degrees. So I've just flipped it. And I can always do undo. Okay. I'll hit delete, insert. You may get options to do clip arts. Click clip art, choose what they want you to do. They might say look for a car or a boy. Click go, double click on the car, and the same options show up with the picture tools. Wrapping, picture styles, colors. So once you understand what this does, it becomes easy. Delete. I'll close this clip art. Insert, they might ask you to put a shape. Whatever they might ask you a triangle. Click it, and again you get drawing tools where you get to do different things. Delete, insert, shape, arrows, whatever they want. If they say left arrow, click it, and then draw it. And they say styles or whatever. That's where they're getting a little picky about it, where they ask you details which you don't usually think about. So insert shapes. They might ask you questions about inserting smart art, and they'll usually tell you that it needs to be a hierarchy and it needs to be an organization. So within hierarchy, you click here, point to it, it will tell you this is organization, this is picture organization, this is name and title. So if they say organization, you click it. Click OK, or just double click on it. Now it's added, And now they might ask you questions from here. They might say, hey, on this, put a certain color. So you need to come to the Smart Art tools, and they'll say, put a, see, when I point to it, it tells me accent colors 2 to 3, or something different, or this one, accent color 4 to 5. So they'll ask you these type of things, or they'll say choose a style which is, let's see, point to it and it should tell me subtle effect. You see, so they all have certain names to it: cartoon, white outline. So you need to choose as they ask you that question. All right, just want to see if there's anything here. Don't think there's too much here. Okay, I can click it and hit delete, insert, Smart